welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show, the show where we talk about all the crazy stupid stuff that people do in marketing and how not to do crazy stupid stuff. But there's a lot of things we need to know about specific things, specific foundations in order to not do crazy stupid stuff. And today we're going to talk about, well, I was going to say one of those things, but it's going to end up being a variety of those things because it has to do about knowing yourself. And when we think about marketing, there's a whole lot of people who are involved. There are marketing leaders, there are marketing creators, there are clients who are consuming things. All of these things are being done by humans. And there is a power that we can find when we have real ownership of who we are. And it really is a critical component in order to not do crazy, stupid marketing. So for those of you who might be new to the show, quick overview of what I consider crazy, stupid marketing to be. Crazy being the things that you do over and over and over, expecting different results, AKA definition of insanity, and stupid, which my 7-year-old continues to tell me is a swear word. But hey, it's part of the name of the show. Stupid being things you do, but you don't know why you're doing them. So pretty much you're doing them because someone else told you that you should, and you don't really know what your reason is for doing the thing. But if we haven't done this kind of behind the scenes work to know who we are and why we do things, how we do things, then we can't identify what is stupid because we don't know what we would do. And so today we're going to have a very fun conversation with my good friend, Sarabeth, about identities. And we have approximately 45 minutes, so we can only go so deep into identities, but we're going to touch on a whole bunch of things, specifically because for marketers, we're expected to be a lot of things. And even more and more now, like in the last 2 years, we added on prompt engineers and all these different types of things that we have, quote unquote, have to, let's use that loosely, have to be. And how does that really fit with who we are, with our individual identities? And we're going to dive into all of that good stuff today. So if you're joining us live, we would love to hear your voice as part of the conversation as well. So there is a chat mechanism wherever you are consuming this. So if you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, there's an opportunity to post a comment. Please feel free to do that. Ask us your questions, share your experiences, your insights, your perspectives, how this has manifested for you, specifically if you are in marketing, but quite honestly, we've all been on our own career journeys and it's relevant. So wherever you are, we would love to hear your voice. So please share it with us. I feel like I've done a lot of talking already. So let's hear Sarabeth's voice. How about Sarabeth? For those you are not new to the show, but for those of you who do not know you, or for those of our viewers who do not know you, not you who don't know you, that's got weird, especially because we're talking about identities. It's like the exact opposite. Slips of the tongue sometimes lead to the best things on the show. But Sarabeth, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, your working career identities, and how you specifically see this maybe being a challenge for marketers?
Yeah, Tracy, thanks for having me back. I love your definition of crazy and stupid. It's could also be called like insanity marketing or insanely stupid. But I love where you're going with this, and that's why I joined you, because we need to talk about the hard truths and why are people doing the things they've always been doing the way they've always been done. I question that all the time. And so a little bit about me, I'm the author of a book called More Than My Title. This came out a few years ago, and really, I call myself a professional identity researcher and expert, and I focus on the idea of hybrid professional identity, which we'll get into more in a moment. But essentially, it's people that are jacks of all trades. They struggle to explain who they are and what their value is. And so that's what I help people do. I provide guidance, tools, resources, and I have a whole online course around how do you discover who you really are in your work and define and name that in a way so people understand your authentic self, your unique value, and you can differentiate yourself in the workforce. So what I do is part personal branding, because putting your identity into the world is your brand, but people try and start with their brand before they know their identity. I start with identity. So personal branding, career development, and workforce innovation are sort of the intersection that I sit at. And my work has come from my own personal, professional problems and challenges in the work world. I've had a very winding career path. I started in art and art education and design. I was a K-12 art teacher. Then I wanted to be an innovator and change educational systems. I went to get my doctorate. And somewhere along the line, I just realized like I am more than my job title. Like being a teacher has been boxing me in for years. It's holding me back career-wise because people wouldn't hire me for leadership roles. They're like, you're just a teacher. So I was like, how do I describe all the things I've been doing in my work? I've been using art and using design and using research and being a teacher as a way to communicate and share knowledge, but nobody will hire me for 4 different things. That's just too confusing. So when I had this crisis about myself, I called it an identity crisis. I was like, really who I am is at the intersection of my multiple professional identities. And this intersectionality is a hybrid. And I was like, whoa, can I be a hybrid? What does that mean? And that revelation changed everything in my work. It became my dissertation. It turned into the book and now my platform more than my title. And I've found that thousands of people are experiencing this. Like the challenge that I thought was unique to me, I was like, why am I such a mess in my career? Why do I not know how to describe all the hats I wear or answer the what do you do question? So many people are struggling with that because we live in a day and age where it's good to have multiple interests and skills and passions. People have multiple degrees and credentials in different things. And that should be celebrated. And like people should hire you for that, not tell you you need to fit a box and sorry, you don't have the right experience for this role. We don't understand you. So we've got to disconnect in the workforce. And so I talk in my book about this framework, and we can get into that too, that there are 3 types of professionals in the workforce: people in singularity, multiplicity, or hybridity. And all 3 types matter. It's not a hierarchy, but we need to know which type we are because some people are experts. They want to stay in one lane. That's singularity. Some people like to bounce around and have multiple things going on at once. They're like, I want to do some strategy, but I want to do some creative storytelling over here. Oh, and I also do event planning. Oh, and I'm a yoga instructor. But those things never touch. It's like I do this and then I do that. And the hybrid are the people in the workforce that are integrating, finding those common through lines and connection points and creating interconnected ways of working and thinking. And that is a critical role, but we don't realize to hire for that specifically or to brand ourselves that way. So I'm here to help demystify what it means when you are locked into one job title and how you break out of those boxes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. I have like all the places I can go with this because I love though when you talk about singularity because I always think about my knee surgeon. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really just want my knee surgeon to be good at knee surgery.
Right.
Right. I don't need him to be good at brain surgery. I need him to be good at knee surgery.
Yeah. Or doing all the admin and the ops and the room setup and the policy and the legal. You're like,
I don't need him to order the light bulbs for the things, right? Like I would like him just to be good at knee surgery. Yeah. And then even as you describe the 3 different types of identities, I can think of marketers that can fit into all of them, right? There are a lot of people in creative design, for example, who they want to design and their designs are beautiful and we should have them doing design, right? That just makes sense. But then we say, you do that and then also do grant writing and also do PR.
Exactly.
And people are like, well, I can do that. I think also from even like the multiplicity point of view, there is like this difference between like, well, I can versus like I get energy from that. Like I like the switching and the non-interaction. And then the hybrids. And again, like I see this fitting so meaningfully into the marketing ecosystem is that who is bringing all of this together, right? We got to touch customer experience. We got to touch sales. We got to touch delivery sometimes, right? Like we got to touch all parts of the business.
Yeah.
But we're looking for a whole bunch of singularities, or we're looking for singularities, but then we're making them do multiplicities. Like, what does
exactly
that, like,
and what does that do to a team dynamic in the culture? So when we have the wrong type of identity and the wrong role, we're stretching them, we're pushing them too far, we're making them uncomfortable. They're in their zone of least competence. Like, we make work more difficult, and we screw up our talent management when we have the wrong types of identities and the wrong roles.
Right. Okay, so let's start with, like, what are some ways, because I'm sure there's like data points that people could probably pick up from their experiences that they've had so far that could help them identify which of those three categories they might fit into. So can you walk us through some things in maybe each of those categories that someone could be like, oh yeah, that really resonates with me?
Yeah, there's so many ways to answer this. Sometimes it's just that inner gut check of like, yeah, I know I'm more than my job title and I don't know what to do about it.
Right.
I'd say actually the best starting point is, how do you answer the what do you do question? If you are crystal clear and you're like, I am a software engineer, and that is how you see yourself, it aligns with your job title, then you are probably very firmly in singularity. This is just like a rough ballpark. I tend to see people that are in scientific fields or analytical fields be much more secure in their singularity, and they just are like, this is what I do. People that start to answer the what do you do question with, well, my title is this, but I really do that, or I like to do this, 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 and then it becomes a laundry list, like they kind of ramble on, then either it shows me two things. One, they don't really know who they are. They have a lack of self-awareness, self-understanding that needs to be cleaned up because they're sounding discombobulated. Or it starts to show me this person's in multiplicity, and we need to help them clarify the value and the strength of that. And multiplicity and hybridity get confused a lot. People are like, oh yeah, I do a lot of things. Of course, I'm a hybrid. They're not that similar. When you are in hybridity, think of it like convergence. You become a whole new thing. So an apricot and a plum were crossbred, and it's an apriplum. You're not taking a bite of plum and then taking a bite of apricot and going, I'm an apriplum. It's literally a fused whole new piece of fruit, and it got a whole new name as a result. That's a hybrid name. So multiplicity is like eating one ingredient at a time, and you can chew them in your mouth, but they're distinctly separate. Hybridity is they are fused and woven together and merged into something, and that's why it defies categorization. It's hybrid. And hybrids tend to be those integrators in companies. They work across silos. They're connecting dots people don't see. And jacks of all trades don't do that. They jump in and help this team, then they help that team, but they're never kind of thinking of the interconnections between what they're trying to do. So if you're feeling like any of those traits sound like you, then that will start to help you understand, okay, I think I'm more hybrid, or I think I'm more in multiplicity. Because step one is just knowing which type you are.
Right.
And then I have frameworks around kind of like a Mad Lib of how you do an elevator pitch around it. If you're in multiplicity or hybridity, you need to narrow down to your top. I call them your primary professional identities. Nobody wants to hear a laundry list of all the things you do. And also be careful. What you do does not mean it's who you are. Identity and actions, identity and skills are two different things. So for instance, in marketing, you are writing copy, you're creating creative, you're getting ready for strategic campaigns, all of that. That doesn't mean you are a copywriter or a storyteller or a creative director. Those are different labels, but you might label yourself anything. I'm going to pause there. I feel like I'm just going on.
Well, and this is why I love this conversation, first of all, because it's not just like, here's the 3 questions that you can answer yourself that will give you the 3 answers. Yeah. A question is going to lead to more things. And like, we're exploring identities. This gets complex, because I would also guess that there is, like, because of people have been put in different roles, there's also potentially some confusion of like, well, I worked kind of in singularity there and I liked this part about that, but then like I really had to do this over here. I've never been asked to be an integrator, but maybe I'd like to be an integrator. I don't really know. But it's even interesting. I had a conversation with a young marketer yesterday, and when I find when people are given a space to just like ask the questions that they would ask, so there's no like framework of what you're supposed to do, your role isn't like fully defined here, and you just like listen to what people are saying, it's very curious, because there are people who tend towards curiosity in the integration zone, the dot connecting zone. There's people who are bored. I was just hanging out with my dad. He was like, I'm really good at doing nothing. And I'm like, you are the worst at doing nothing. The man is the worst at being retired, right? Like, it's just that it's not what he does. But he likes to do this, and he likes to do this, and he likes to plant some plants, and then he likes to go on play pickleball, and he likes to go do different things. And again, like, I would like my knee surgeon to just like zone in on knee surgery. And so I think there's exposure that people have had to certain things. But then even when I think about the concept of a specialized surgeon, for example, then I also think we get into this, I don't know if it's like quite a power dynamic, but it's like a societal expectation that one is better than the other. And even like across different things, right? In business school, I remember I'm taking a law class and I'm talking about tax law, and me thinking that sounds like the worst thing my brain could ever attempt to do. And people get paid a lot of money to do it because I don't know, maybe a lot of people have like physical reaction to being a tax lawyer, but like, it takes a lot of schooling and a lot of dedication and a lot of interest to be like a knee surgeon and say like, this is my area of expertise, or I'm a researcher in virology, right? Like, I'm just going to go and do that because I'm so like intrigued by that. But I also feel like in marketing in particular, we are expected to be a lot of things. The number of people who have asked me in my career if I do graphic design, because I'm a marketer, and I have to be like, no, I'm not a graphic designer, never have been, never will be. I know some great ones. I can introduce you. But like, there's a lot that we're expected to be. So I feel like it gets clouded more because the value of being at singular, having that specialty can exist. The value of the multiplicity can exist. The value in the hybridity exists. But we're kind of like, I feel like a lot of marketers get squished into, you should just be all three of these.
Yeah, it's complicated. I hear you. And maybe I can give some concrete examples to make this more clear. So if I were to meet you and start working with you, my top 3 questions go like this. Who are you in your work besides your job title? Like, what do you call yourself? How do you see yourself? Most people can't answer that. They're like, I'm a marketer, or I do marketing strategy. It's just too high level, too generic, too fuzzy. And then the next question is, what does that mean? Like, how are you defining whatever answer you gave? Because the definition of your title is also very personal. It's the way that you bring the personal brand to life. And the last question is, how do you want to be seen, known, and valued for who you are in your work? Most people have never heard that question before either. They're like, we make assumptions people will just get us or understand us. But you need to explicitly know in your heart and in your soul, how do I want to be seen in the world? What impression am I trying to make? How do I want other people to know me and value me? Because when you have it clear in yourself, then you start to project it and talk about it, and other people pick up on it. So those are the 3 big buckets. I call them your career power questions. Now, I was working with a client one time who was in the marketing space, we'll call it, very generally. She was doing branding and design and these decks, and she was very strategic and entrepreneurial. And she even had taught herself how to do all the kinds of audio sound things. Like, she just had this spectrum of talents because she was a millennial and she was very diverse. And she's like, I don't know how to talk to my clients about what I do. I can do so many things. I'm a really talented marketer, if you will. And she had her own little agency. And so she had to do all the ops and stuff too. But how did she want the world to know her? And when we did all this story work, because that's a core part of how I help people understand themselves, I talk about what are your first, best, and only moments. Those are key indicators of when you tend to be in your hybridity because you're in a zone of genius and you are usually unconscious about what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and who you are in that exact moment when you're doing the thing that you are the best at or the first at. And so we look at a number of these stories, and it takes a lot of memory investigation to even remember these stories of yourself. And over time, this woman was like, well, I really listen to people and I find their essence and I'm dialing into this. And by the time we finished our work together, she became a quintessence igniter. She could pull out someone's quintessence of what they were trying to achieve or bring into the world through the project they needed her help with. And she ignited that. She brought it to life. She activated it. That became her internal compass of, oh my God, I know my value add. I know what makes me distinct and unique. And I know how to explain it if somebody asked me. When you land on your core truth of who you are, you can't shut up about yourself. It just like, I'm like, tell me what a quintessence igniter means. And she's like, oh, well, let me explain. And it just becomes this beautiful portrayal because you're like, I'm speaking my truth. I'm not just a marketer. Let me tell you all the bits and pieces of marketing I do. One other quick story along those lines was a different marketer. Also was kind of working fractionally, would jump in with different clients. She's like, Sarabeth, I just help people cut to the chase. Like I make marketing easy and simple. Most people make marketing so complicated and they think it has all these pieces. By the end of my time working with her, she's like, I'm a marketing uncomplicator. That is my truth of what I do. And it just made it so much easier to understand her when she's like, that's why you're hiring me. I am the uncomplicator of whatever marketing needs you have, and I will show you how to move it forward. And I was like, that's genius. Like, that's her identity, and it became her brand. So this is the power of taking whatever parts and pieces of marketing you do and putting it into the thing that only you do and you're the best at.
Yeah, I think this is like, those are really great examples also because they're two different things. But what I love about them too, and what I love about your, the titles, the like owned titles that you help people move towards is that they're not actually complicated. Right? I'm not trying to be like use a whole, I mean, the quintessential thing, it took me a minute because I'm like, what does this word mean again? Yeah, but like, the point is that you have like the thing that you can be like, and I say this all the time because I call myself an authentic marketing advisor, and people are like, what does that mean? And I'm like, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Right. And there's like, we think even from like a marketing perspective, or maybe specifically for marketers, because our job is always to create taglines and simple narratives and stories and these types of things, that we can get very caught up in this being like profound, right? Like this has to sound different. And I'm pretty sure like the marketing uncomplicated, like that's not even proper English really, right? But like, that's not the point. The point is that you have that ownership of the thing, that I can be so clear to go and deliver that to people. And then I think what also happens, I mean, so like, and I think you and I have had this conversation before, when it's just like a one person, while it's still complex to dig out the truth, the concept works for teams and businesses too. Because like, what if all of your marketers now could like go to market doing whatever their piece is, PR, email, cross-sell, upsell, whatever, and you had that. You guys had the team version of that. And we were like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. And together we're doing this. Like,
like imagine,
it feels like it has energy, which I feel like a lot of marketing does not have.
Yeah. Imagine you're in a corporate situation or a business situation and you've got a team, a marketing department, and you've got the formal titles, director of strategy, head of creative, social media associate, whatever. Those are the formal titles you use for hiring and management, but they don't show the truth of who those people are or how they see themselves in their work. So this layer of what is your professional identity, which is separate from your job title, is defining how you see yourself. And so imagine if on that team, you're like, oh, here's Jenny. She's director of marketing, but she's really the quintessence igniter. And then over here, here's Sam, and he's the social media strategist, but he's really the uncomplicator. Like
Right.
these parts of you become revealed that are more potent than just whatever generic title you were given. And then you make sense of the team and why they're there and the value add they're collectively bringing. So these tools work whether you work for yourself, you're independently employed freelancer, or you work in a team and your team is just putting you in a box, in a job title, in a role.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, personally, I particularly have the struggle with the marketing coordinator role.
Right. There you go.
Because it's a mashup. It is saying that we have enough money as a business to have one person do marketing stuff.
Yeah.
So let's slam all the marketing stuff into one job description and then go to market and find somebody who can do all of those things. And again, this is an experience I've been having with job descriptions lately, is like, what do you actually need this person to do, right? This job description doesn't say it gives me a list of things, of skills, of tactics that maybe have implemented in the past, but like, okay, yeah, I can send an email campaign. Absolutely, I can do that, right? But what is the value of that in this list of things if that doesn't roll up to what do you want this role to do? And how does that interact with the rest of the people? Right. I was having a conversation yesterday too with somebody about a like marketing team who was pretty much just like a sales asked for stuff and marketing made stuff. And it's not the first time I've heard that. It's the common way that marketing participates in specific industries. But like they're just order takers. Right? And there are there's actually people in the world who love to be order takers. There's people in the world who hate to be order takers. And so like, I'm the worst at that. If you ask me for that, the question I'm going to ask you is like, what is it supposed to accomplish for you? And if you don't have that answer, I'm not going to just do it because you told me to do it. That's not what I do. And so like those types of things, and also for like individual marketers, those types of vibes, when you're getting those types of marketing orders and you feel like that's information for you to explore. Like, oh, maybe this is not what I'm looking for. So let's also look at the challenge though between like historic hiring and people who might now have this knowledge or are exploring this knowledge about themselves, because I feel like the two are not compatible. And that may or may not have an impact on a job search. And I feel like at the end of the day, a lot of people end up taking a job because they need to have a job. Right? They got to pay their mortgage. They have to feed their kids. But like any tips for people to like how they might approach that in the job search scenario?
Well, we're at a really striking time. We are in the midst of the paradigm shift. And so I'm trying to forecast and pattern spot as much as other people are of like what is happening in the current workforce, because we're all feeling the disruption, but naming it and getting clear on what and why is still very sticky. So first of all, I'm a big fan of advocating for yourself. If you don't know who you are and how you want to be seen, known, and valued, you cannot expect other people to figure it out for you. You need to lead with that and own that. So do your own introspective self-awareness, professional identity work first and foremost, so you have clarity of yourself. Then there is the optics of business, whether it's client-facing or you're trying to work for an employer. What are they looking for? You have to make the bridge between how you see yourself and who they say they want. Getting through that front door, the application process, getting to the initial interview is a game of matching, being keyword specific, owning the language they want to own. It's very awkward and it's superficial, but play the game. Once you're through that door and you're in the interview process, you have the opportunity to really start to show the other layers and colors. And so learning this language of how to talk about yourself, like, I'm Sarabeth. I see myself as a professional identity researcher and a creative disruptor because I work at the intersection of being an artist, educator, designer, and researcher. When you put it in that language, how you see yourself and the intersections you work at, you start to paint a picture for the other person to see you better, to understand and make sense of you the way you want them to see you. Your career history, like mine, might be nonlinear and very scattered, like a job hopper. And it has like you worked in entrepreneurship and startups and innovation and design. Like we don't get you. But when you start to say, I work at the intersection of that, and the different parts of this combined are why I've been so useful and successful in these past roles. And then you give examples how, again, this is an identity-based lens, not a skills-focused lens of why you matter. So you have that storytelling ability and you get to paint that picture. The other side of this too is the job description. Many job descriptions are looking for hybrid professionals, and nobody knows that. Like it's sort of the language that I see and read between the lines, but to most of us, we're not spotting it. So when people are hiring for a role that's dual reporting, you're going to report, part to strategy and part to design. That's an intersection, right? If they say this is a cross-functional role, you're going to be working with these 3 different teams. That's another intersection, and that's a hybrid. We need someone who is interdisciplinary with these kinds of skills. That's hybridity again, more intersections. So there are keywords and ways that people are highlighting they need hybridity. They just don't know how to express that directly. You can reflect that back to them and say, I saw in the job posting you said dual reporting, works across teams, needs to have internal and external facing knowledge. What I'm hearing there is you need someone who's an integrator who can work between and beyond. That's what a hybrid is. That's what I bring. I have experience in that. So you help them interpret the language they didn't even know they were saying. Also, the last part I want to emphasize here in the future of work, actually 2 more points. One is if you're a hybrid and you have multiple areas of expertise and identity, people say, Sarabeth, what's my niche? What am I an expert in? You are an expert in your own hybridity. The center of a Venn diagram, and I use Venn diagrams all the time to talk about, I work at the intersection of A, B, and C. Who you are in that center is your hybrid expertise. When you can name it something like quintessence igniter and explain why that matters, it's a home run. Like nobody can even stack up against you. The last part I want to say on this, Tracy, is that it's projected by the year 2030, so not that far away. For the first time in the workforce, we're going to have more people self-employed than employed under an employer. That is a huge crossover in the workforce. That means more people will be working for themselves on contracts or as entrepreneurs. They need to know how to brand and speak about themselves and market themselves. So if you are just one of a million other marketers that is now freelancing and contracting, how the heck are you setting yourself apart? You need to know how you were talking about your hybridity or your intersectionality of your identities, your multiplicity, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. I've done this experiment before on LinkedIn where I was like, how many marketing strategists
Oh my gosh.
are there on LinkedIn? Last I checked, 1.7 million.
And they've like hidden that data, by the way. I used to do more people searches on job titles to get those results. They're not doing it the same way anymore.
No, their search has gone downhill. In terms of like the research types of numbers.
Yes, they've hidden it. Yeah.
But like what you can still do, and like I do, I did this, was like, how many authentic marketing advisors are there on LinkedIn? There are 2. Me and one other person who has now copied it, which I'm like, this is great because I have like 13,000 followers and they have like 300 connections. So we can see who started this. But like the point is that there's not that many. Now we also, like, even from a marketing perspective, well, there's probably marketers, especially if you're an SEO professional, that's like, well, nobody is out looking for authentic marketing advisor. And that's probably true, right? Nobody is thinking those words.
Yeah.
But if people are thinking marketing strategist and they look for it and they come up with 1.7 million people, how do you think they're going to sort that data?
Yeah.
They're going to sort the data based on things they already know.
Can I take it one step further?
Yes, please.
AI. People are using AI more and more to figure out who to hire for consulting and gigs and speaking and all kinds of reasons. And so your AI visibility, which is also based on your digital presence, again, if you're just using terms marketing, some of that you need for the SEO, the AI indexing I get, but you also need some unique language that makes you pop when it's like, what kind of special thing you bring.
Right. And this is, okay, let's go in this direction because I feel like I have a lot of people. I'm hearing this in the words, and I don't know if you're watching and you're saying these words. Or if I have heard them before, so we're going to go in this direction. But there's nothing interesting about me. There's nothing different about me. I'm just a marketing strategist. I have 10 years of marketing experience. That's the same as everybody else who has 10 years of marketing experience. So what are some of your, actually, let's just look at this. Where are some places where if you're in that place where you think there's nothing unique about you, Sarabeth and I are here to tell you that there is something unique about you. Where can people dig for that kind of insight?
Let's go digging. I call it, let's find your gold mine, for sure. Yeah, we are just conditioned, I think, culturally to be stuck at a very high level of superficiality and vanilla, boring language. When I start working with people, without a doubt, every single time, I've almost gotten bored, but I have to use my poker face, oh, this is so interesting. I'm like, tell me about yourself. How do you see yourself? And people start with, I'm a strategist, I'm a problem solver, I'm a collaborator, I'm a really good dot connector, I see things this way. And this is just how people talk about themselves. There's nothing interesting there. And actually, they think they're being self-revealing. And I'm like, this is the most common set of pattern words I've ever heard. I'm going to throw something at all your listeners. I just created a custom GPT called the Professional Essence Finder. And it's 78 different archetypes of what energy do you have when you're being who you truly are in your work? Because I needed to kickstart how people start to unlock new language for themselves before we even get to the identity. So if people want to try that out, maybe I'll post it somehow after this and a link in the LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And okay, we were talking about I'm pretty generic and boring and how do I break out of my boxes? It comes down to even the word unique. We don't know how to register consciously. What makes me unique? I'm smart, I'm pretty, I'm whatever. We struggle to have that self-awareness. So I use a backdoor. My researcher was like, the word unique isn't getting us to the answer. And some people use the superpower question. Same thing. We don't know how to answer our superpower. But these words work. Where are you the first, the best, or the only at something? And the way I define first is you were the first on a team, in a company, in a state, in your professional association, whatever. You know when you were the first. I created this new type of blog post. I was the first to try a campaign like that. Where were you the best? It could be top 5, top 10, top 20, again, on a team, in the country, amongst your friend group, however you want to measure it. And the only, you're like, I don't know anyone else who's tried this thing. It's the only, way we've created this kind of presentation, and we did it with an event, and it was really remarkable. When you use that language of first, best, and only, you find where you're unique, you find your superpowers. Here's the other part of it though. The self-reflection is really hard. You need a mirror, whether you are really good at journaling and you can write it down, but I find most people need a partner who can be an excellent listener and reflector. And that partner's job is to get the other person to become a witness to their own self in those moments. Because you'll just start being like, oh yeah, I made this slide deck. It was really great. And it's like, whoa, go back to the slide deck. How did you make the slide deck? Oh, well, first I make my own design elements in Adobe. And then I post it. Wait, why do you make your own design elements? Why don't you use Canva? What's going on here? Oh, because I love to illustrate. And then when I illustrate, it gives me an idea. And so the more you drill and get to the how you do what you do and what makes it your unique process, you start to go, wow, I'm really this illustrator of ideas, and I'm in my best when I'm blah, 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 and it becomes so much more palpable and tangible, and your gold starts to emerge. But it takes this excavation process and someone to help you hear the things you don't know you're saying about yourself and don't see that you're doing, to help you see who the F you really are in your work.
Well, I think it's making me think of this example. Actually, I was at a networking event and I was chatting with this lady, and she had recently started a HR consultancy. And first of all, I also think we can do some more due diligence, asking good questions out there, folks. We're walking around being like, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. And everyone is asking her these questions. Who's your ideal target? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, these are so generic.
I know.
She kept coming back to this theme of an underlying mathematical principle that she used for this. And I was like, can you tell me about that? Because I've never heard anybody say anything like that when they're talking about HR consulting. And she got like so excited explaining to me something I was like way over my head, right? Like I do not understand nor retain the information shared from that part of the conversation. What I do remember is the energy shift. Like she was so excited about it. And at the end, like she went from like answering the questions to like, oh my gosh, it's this and blah, blah, blah. And I said, after she was finished, I was like, how many people have you told that to?
Yes.
And she was like, nobody. And I'm like, maybe you want to tell more people that part. Because very many, like, again, like I don't understand it, but I remember her. I remember her energy. And I remember that she's an HR consultant.
Nice.
So if I need that, or there's somebody I know who needs that, I can go back to her because now she's memorable in a sea of HR consultants, which again, at least 1.7 million on LinkedIn, right? Like, and this is the thing. It's not that that's the right thing, that every HR consultant should have like some kind of mathematical underlying formula that they work from. The point is that you found that. You found that. That's an intersection. Right? That is an intersection that no one else has found. And I talk to a lot of HR consultants. Really, like, I haven't heard anybody say that. And it's really interesting because I feel like, I mean, it's also kind of my job to be that reflection, right? And it's a gift that I love to give to people. But like, we don't see it. We don't see it in ourselves. Even that's why coaches have coaches, because we don't always see that stuff in ourselves. This is why I continue to have Sarabeth back on the show, because I feel like it's a coaching session for me every time, and a reminder of my like brand essence. But like, who are the people in your life that you can be like, that you, one, feel like you can have this space to just like fully be yourself in front of or with, because that's not true of all of us, right? And even people who are good at it have people that they're not good at it in front of, right? And are you putting those people in your path often enough so that can remind you that this is like, oh yeah, that's the thing.
You know, one thing I've been thinking a lot about, Tracy, is this idea of bring your whole self to work and your whole identity. And you've got professional and personal and social and political and religious. We have a spectrum of identities that make us us. That's why we have names. My name is Sarabeth. That's the container for my identity of all these identities. But we don't need to bring our whole selves to work. I'm on that side of the equation, because not everything's appropriate all the time. And it's more about the authentic identity that you bring. Are you bringing your truth? Are you using these cover-up words and boxes and labels? I'm a this, I'm a head of HR, I'm a CEO. No, I want to know who you are. How do you see yourself? And learning that you're an authentic marketer. And I see myself as a creative disruptor and professional identity expert. Like, that's more real and more honest and more relatable. And it's memorable. So when I talk about this seen, known, valued, you are trying to create a way that you strike so much interest and memorability that people will refer you or come back and be like, there's this woman, Tracy, who's some kind of authentic marketer. I think I need her for X project in the future. But if you're just another marketer in a sea of marketers, I say this about coaches a lot too, because I've met so many coaches. I don't know what makes them different. I don't know when to call Sue versus Bob versus Bill, because they're all just coaches. Right. So there's this whole idea that without understanding your authentic professional identity, you just become lost. You're just in a pile.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this also, just because I'm having a personal experience with this, because I like to put Sarabeth into my conversations, and she continues to challenge my perspective of my professional identity. How does like evolution play into this? Because I feel like maybe specifically for people who are in that kind of hybrid intersection arena, that this can be more of an evolution than like a final destination. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and the like permission to evolve?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I get it a lot, because who you've been is not, like, even 10 years ago is not who you are currently, and it's not maybe who you're becoming. So identity is fluid and flexible. But I do want to emphasize, I think when you find your authentic professional identity, your truth, there is durability. It is not changing weekly or monthly. you can reflect on it and maybe revise it a little bit annually, but I think there's more durability, like a decade at a time.
Mm.
And when I look back at my career of about almost 20 years now, I have been a creative disruptor. That's my name for my hybridity for probably the duration of the 20 years. I just only learned the language for it in the last 5. I can trace being a creative disruptor in the classroom and in higher ed and in startups. So that part of it, I want people to think there is a consistency to how you name your hybridity or name your authentic professional self. But there is also room for it to change and grow. When I talk about what do you work at the intersection of, I think that's where it starts to shift more. You're like, well, I've been the strategist and I've been the marketer, I've been the collaborator, but this emerging identity or something else I'm trying to become, more of the truth sayer or the investigator or something is coming through. So then talk about that and how your intersections are changing. Like you work at new intersection of marketing, being an investigator and being a collaborator. Um, but I am working with a client right now who is having a total evolution of how she is branding her professional identity. And she was some kind of sustainability, I'm going to forget it, creative sustainablist. And it worked for her for a while, but she's like, it's just not really me anymore. And I think you know it in your body. A lot of career work is embodied, it's not in your head. We get stuck on words that sound cool or right or interesting. Actually, the biggest test is saying, I am a, and then when it comes out of your mouth, how does it feel? And do it a few times in a row. And so for her, she just knew in her body, she's like, this just isn't me anymore. I'm evolving. So then it's time to do a refresh. But that's a little bit of how I play with those troops. But if someone's cycling too fast, you are not creating consistency in your network, in your colleagues, your community. They don't know what to know you for. And if other people can't reference you similarly over time, then you have brand dissolution. You are not memorable. You are not usable. Nobody knows what makes you unique. So that's why these identities need to be more durable.
Yeah, I think that concept of durable yet fluid is a really great way to look at it. Because I think a lot of times we think this is like solid and permanent. Human change. I love the concept too. I remember going through this like passion program years ago, and there was like 4 passion drivers that came out of it. And I did the exercise, and a bunch of other people did the exercise, and a lot of people had to read them off a list. And I was like, I feel like that's not it then, right? Like, unless you can fully embody it. And like the thing I got to, and so I made 4 because they said I was supposed to do 4, but I was like, I think I have 1. I think it's collective contribution. And there's a lot of things that play into that, right? Like I believe in authenticity. I believe in uniqueness and how we can create togetherness based on that. And like all of those things are really saying the same things. And so I think it's really interesting specifically for marketers to be able to play with this, because there is your way of saying it, but there's also that like, this story has kind of always been the same, right? Like it's the same Tracy that wandered around the school at lunchtime to make sure there was a picture of every single student in the yearbook. Right? That's what Tracy would do. That's not what everyone would do. And I know that because there were multiple times that I wasn't in the yearbook and I was like, I'm making this a thing. Like that's a Tracy thing. And that's kind of collective contribution, right? Or my interpretation of collective contribution at the time. But I think it's always been something that's been like neat for me to look at. Like, what are these like truths that I've always had in my ways of being, whether that's like, even when you were talking about like first, best, and only, I was like, I came up with things for each of them. And I'm like, they're all like, they're not the same thing.
No, they shouldn't be the same thing.
One of them was me. I was working in a corporate office and I was really bored. So I was like, what can I do? Everybody's really sedentary here. Maybe we should have this passport to fitness program. And then HR was like, yeah, go have fun. And I was like, good. And like, it was so awesome. And it was like the first time that anybody had done anything like that in the organization. And then like, I won the Right Stuff Award when I went to space camp, and like that's still like my number one thing as best, right? Like I'm the best at that. That's awesome. And like when you look at these things, and also kind of the like underlying energy of your beingness that exists when you're in that,
Yeah.
right? Like that, yeah, I went to space camp. I had to do the things, right? Like there was a framework in which to do that, to not crash the space station out of orbit and all of these things. And so it doesn't even necessarily mean you're not within a boundary of a professional organization or anything like that. But it's where you find, I mean, it sounds kind of simple, but it's like where you find joy, where you get that like spark in your heart that's like, that's a Tracy thing.
Yeah. I have criteria around how you find these primary professional identities. And again, in the FBOs, the first best onlys, it's who are you in those moments? And you start with the actions to lead to the identities, because we can't see the identity first. But yeah, shoot, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, it's gone.
It's gone. Trains of thoughts come and go on the show. It is what it is. But I think at the end of the day, what we have demonstrated is that there's a lot of depth to the conversation about identities. And it's not, I mean, this is one of the reasons why the show exists, because in the world of marketing and marketing promoting other worlds as well, a lot of times we get caught up in this like simple thing, right? Like all you have to do is this. And there is a path to discovering your identity and being able to define that that's where you want to be, that like this is a priority for me, I have an intention of figuring this out about myself. That's where it starts, right? And this is why the show exists, to let you try on the things where you're like, yes, this is the path I need to go down.
I got my idea back. It came back to me. The notion of how hybrid are you? There's different degrees of hybridity. So some people have very similar backgrounds or interests or identities, but to your point, your first best onlys are so disparate. And to me, that means you're even more hybrid. And there can be intersection between things that are completely unrelated. Art and science being a really clear example. People are like, how is there overlap? I can name a number of people that are innovators and inventors and entrepreneurs of companies that have connected to things that had nothing in common, but finding that new intersection became the company, the product, the thing they're known for. Neri Oxman is my favorite example. She's a material ecologist. She created a whole new field, and people don't know if she's in Wired magazine and the Smithsonian Art Museum at the same time. Like, how the heck?
And then, like, I don't know, you hybrid folks that are listening to this, my brain is like, oh my God, that's so exciting. Like, that's where I would like to be. How many museums can I get in? Like, but again, I society loves boxes.
Yes.
And there's people who fit well into those boxes, and there's people we need to fit in the boxes.
But we also need new boxes, and we need permission to create new boxes. And that's where it gets tricky. This is, if you know anything about brand and product category creation, you are creating a new category for yourself, which means you have to build education and awareness, because no one's heard of that category. They don't know what it means, why it matters. And if you are the only representative of it, you have to be your biggest champion and advocate. But it's possible.
Right. Yeah. And again, like, the effort that, or the quote unquote work that goes into that education, into defending those things. I remember having a conversation with another marketer once, and he just had no idea about any of the things I was talking about. And you can use that as an easy out to say like, oh, there's something wrong with me, I need to fix this. There's also always going to be people who don't get your box, right? And there's going to be employers that don't get your box, but there's going to be employers that do get it too. I know we're like right at the end of the show, but Jarrell just snuck in a question.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it. What tips do you have for making sure a resume or a cover letter makes it easier to have a conversation about intersection and authenticity? Great question, Jarrell.
Yep. I love it. First easy tip for the cover letter, hi, I'm interested in applying to X role. I see myself as and give a label for your professional identity if you have one. If you do not, just continue with the sentence. Say, I work at the intersection of X, Y, and Z. Using the phrase, I work at the intersection of, go do a Boolean search term on that. You'll see this is a way many people are marketing companies and ideas and themselves. And that is the first signal. And then you can talk more about what happens at that intersection. Why is it valuable? What unique secret sauce are you bringing that's going to contribute amazing results to this role? And then during the interview, when they go, tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? That's the how do you see yourself question. And so reinforce how, like, what identity label you would give yourself and how you work at the intersection of X, Y, and Z. It works. It helps people just clue into what you're doing. And you can say, I'm a hybrid professional because I work at the intersection of these things. Be careful with the word or the term hybrid professional, though. It's just gone in so many directions in the last 5 years since the world went hybrid. People think it means you work in person and remote. So unfortunately, hybridity has a lot of connotations, but talking about hybrid professional in the right way when you're presenting yourself can really land as well.
Oh, I think that's so great. And I'll actually, like, I just want to share this personal experience because I applied for a job the other day. And they gave the option of uploading a resume or sharing your LinkedIn link. But they were very specific about you do one, not do both, right? And I was like, this is very interesting because when I write a resume, I write it as if I'm trying to prove to someone that I can do all the things that it's asking you to do. And I was like, even like before that, that's what I was working on. I was like, oh, that's how I write a resume. But what if I wasn't writing a resume like that? What if I was writing a resume? And I ended up sharing my LinkedIn because I do more stuff on LinkedIn. But like I want to share that because that's more of who I am. And if I want them to see who I am as part of like my funnel as to whether or not this job is right for me, then like it makes more sense for them to look at my LinkedIn profile, which has very little. I mean, it has all of my experience, but it has very little what I did in this job. It has all of the storytelling about what those jobs meant to me. And so it's interesting even just to like look at kind of the energy and how we think we need to create these things. And if we're creating a resume from I gotta prove to you energy, then that's different than saying like, I'm writing this from owning my intersectionality. And if it matches, great. And if it doesn't, you're missing out.
I know. There's the human factor and the computer factor. I call it human vision and computer vision. We are playing both games simultaneously, and you have to be good at both. And depending on what your goal is, if you're just like, oh, I'm applying to apply. But unfortunately, we are being read by algorithms and AI. And so it is very strategic what you need to put forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's actually, I mean, there's a lot more of this too, right? About the hidden job market and how it's like people who know each other that like, and this is the thing that's really interesting. Even my sister's in the job market right now. And so she's been applying for lots of jobs. And then all of a sudden in my LinkedIn feed, I was like, I don't know why I got it in my LinkedIn feed. It's because of the universe. But I was like, oh my God, this would be perfect for her. And not just because like her skills match, but because like the organization is in total alignment with who she is as a person, and she is in like kind of a she has an education in this arena, but she's trying to like get experience in different arenas. And I was like, oh my God, this would be perfect. And I know someone who's on the board and like all of the things. So then you're just like, and fingers crossed that it works out. And maybe she hates it and doesn't want to try it. But like the point is that there's also a lot of that when you have that clarity around owning your intersectionality, you put those tendrils out into the world that make those other more hidden possibilities opportunities.
Yeah. And I think it opens your mind of how do you search for jobs that are at the intersection of work you want to do as opposed to starting with the job first. It helps you kind of do a reverse search on what you think you're looking for and see what random matches you get that you would have never thought X job title would be right, but you hit it because of an intersectional sense of yourself.
It's interesting because earlier this week we did an episode on marketing and communications, and I was like, oh, really branding people based on our definition for that episode are in the communications, but they're like looking for jobs that are VP marketing. But what if there's VP of communications? Have you looked for that? Right? Like other opportunities to even think outside of that. I mean, like I loved my role as a vice president of customer success, right? Because I got to do market research. I got to talk to customers. I got to design new product. Like there was a lot of fun stuff that happened there. And in my brain, I'm like, well, people put this category into marketing and they put this into, but like, I was good at this because I I touched multiple areas.
Yeah.
And again, like when you can, even if you can look back on your experience and like if you're going through a resume and look back and be like, why did I love this job?
Yeah.
Right. But I didn't really care that much about this one. There's, again, data to be gathered that can point you in the right direction.
Oh my God.
And another great direction is to have a conversation with Sarabeth. Because
I love that.
As far as I'm concerned, she knows all of the things.
Oh, you're so kind. I love talking to you.
And I literally learn more about myself every time we talk. And it's just, again, I said earlier, have those people in your life. It's a good thing. So Sarabeth, where is the best place for people to connect with you if they would like to continue the conversation?
Thanks, Tracy. morethanmytitle.com is my website, and I've got free resources there, courses, private coaching, all kinds of things. And I just want to plug my new book called...
I was going to say, I think there's a new book coming out.
There's a new book coming out in September, so it's getting closer, and it's titled Seen, Known, Valued: How to Achieve Career Belonging in a Workforce Obsessed with Fit. It's kind of the continuation of the More Than My Title book, because if you figure out you're a hybrid or your professional identity and you go, well, where do I fit in the workforce? The whole idea of fit is just the wrong frame to be thinking about. And this idea of how do you want to be seen, known, and valued is a bigger topic we need to start unpacking. And it makes people feel a lot more aligned and resonant with the work they're doing. So I'm really excited about that book coming in September, and morethanmytitle.com is where you can find me.
Oh, and there may or may not be some use case from Tracy Borson.
That's right, Tracy's in the
next book. I shared actually as part of the promotion for this episode, one of the frameworks that Sarabeth introduced to me was this concept of little C career versus big C career. Yes. And it was really impactful in how I looked at the work I was doing. So highly recommend. I mean, I follow everything. Sarabeth's got a newsletter, sign up for it, right? It's one of the few newsletters that gets into my inbox. And so again, as I say on every single episode, what we talk about on the Crazy Stupid Marketing Show isn't just okay, I came for an hour and now I have all of the answers. Hopefully you have more questions than you have answers. Yet we have paths to go down to explore those questions, to get your answers instead of someone else's answers. And so connect with Sarabeth, connect with me, have conversations with other people who make you feel seen and known and valued, and continue in the conversation. Don't let this be the last time you're exploring your career identity. Let it be the first of many times till you get to that part where you're finding the durable yet fluid things about you that nobody can take away. Sarabeth, I would keep talking to you all day.
I know, really good.
End it at that. Darrell, thank you so much for the great question, and to everybody else who is watching. If you're watching this on replay and you have a question, you can still post it. We can come back and answer that. Maybe we want to do another episode, or we can definitely write back answers. So definitely do that as well. And until next time, my friends, permission to do you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tracy. Bye, everybody.